Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Peter, how's it going?
It's going well. It's raining again, but I'm coping.
Well, you're also looking very festive. I mean, we are into November, which means we can get into holiday themes. You are wearing a lovely red shirt with our nice green backdrop, which is a point of contention because you think it's black, but is definitely green.
And I did want to change my shirt because we were recording 2 episodes. So this is a duplicate shirt.
Yeah, well, we are being
It's still red.
Yeah, still red. We're trying to be very efficient because we are going to be away at NICA. So that's the National Youth Mountain Bike League in the US. We're going to be at their Eastern Regional. So I can do a bunch of Shred Girl stuff with their
Shred Girls and your new book, The Strong Girl.
Yes, with Strong Girl Publishing.
Okay, so people should check that out. We'll put the link in the show notes. But yeah, brand new book, and anyone who's looking for gift ideas, maybe this is like a Thanksgiving gift, perhaps. Do we give those, or just getting ready for the holidays? If you have a young person in your life who's into reading and or into just athletics, and maybe needs to do a bit more reading, this is a great option. And for any Shred Girls avid fans, this would be like a good next step.
Yes, I have heard from a few parents who bought the book. Their daughters love Shred Girls or sons. We actually have quite a few boys who read these books, so very exciting. A couple parents I've heard from, their kids love the Shred Girls books and they're loving the Strong Girls. So that's very exciting.
Always a little nervous because it's not the same characters. It's not like part 2 or 4 or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, I guess maybe I could build it in so it actually is like the prequel, like
her kids eventually.
It turns out Lizzie is actually like the great grandmother of Allie or something. I don't know. Anyway,
okay, so Molly's got a new book, so you love if you check that out. Thank you to everyone who has checked it out and shared that around.
Very much appreciate it.
As a small publishing company, definitely appreciate the assistance and the sharing there.
Okay, so I just have to pause and give a very nerdy. This got me really excited. So there's a woman, Annie Hall, who wrote a book about Louise Armando, who inspired the Strong Girl. She's very loose inspiration for the book. Look her up if you are ever interested. So Anne Hall wrote this book, Muscles on Wheels, about Louise Armando. And actually, she emailed me the other day because a friend of hers from the States happened to get the Strong Girl, not because it was about Louise Armando, just happened to get it for her niece. And then immediately emailed Anne because in the afterword of the book, I say, if you want to read about the actual woman who kind of loosely inspired this book, check out Muscles on Wheels. So she read it and she's like, oh my gosh, I know her. So she emailed Anne and then Anne emailed me and I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is like a superstar to me.
Okay.
So Anne is like a historian here in Canada and has written a couple of books about different women in Canadian history. So anyway, very, very exciting and just so cool to see that it's getting around.
Okay, well, we have
a couple of questions.
2 questions. We're going to cover these quickly because the one is one I find is belabored, but we'll go into it. So do you want to read this? The peaking. We have a peaking question.
Okay. I've been hammering interval training and big conditioning rides in the last 6 weeks leading up to the Iceman Cometh, which I think will be done by the time this goes live.
Could be. Yeah. Or just happening as you listen to it. Who knows how your world will evolve.
So it's 30 miles of forest trail, 2,200 feet of elevation gain ahead of this person in about 2 hours or less. So Iceman is kind of usually the season ending mountain bike race for a lot of people, not season ending in that they get horribly injured, just
some people like that. Sure.
In that it's it's early
it's
November.
Late. It's late. And it snows. It's in northern Michigan.
Iceman.
Yeah.
We're now 10 days out. Are there any more gains that can be had prior to the race in the run up to an XC race like this? What would your training focus be?
Yeah. So I mean, good luck to everyone. Our good friends Brian Matter and Alexi are I assume both. Brian Matter's been there every year, and that guy is, what an impressive man. Him and Sandra Walter are the ones that give me hope to just keep going at it. But Brian,
last year he was leading. I remember we were watching the.
I think was he not on the podium or where did he end up? It's hard to say. Everything changes in that. But yeah, Alexi won last year, and Brian just is amazing whether he wins or not. So kudos and good luck to them.
Everybody else doing it.
So you're going to peak. It sounds like this person has all the hay is in the barn is the saying. You're a couple weeks out. So all you can do now is basically screw it up. And this is a master's adult person who works and has family. So our rule of thumb with peaking is the working person's peak. And that's basically don't screw it up and try and like put yourself in the best position. We talked about position a little bit with that end of the season. Like, how can you be in a good position? So if you are super stressed from work and like someone's phoning you like the morning of the race and you're yelling into your phone,
Which has happened to both
but
of
then
us.
it's snowy and you didn't anticipate that it was you're going to need clothes and like someone to maybe take your clothes on the start line. Your bike's not ready. You haven't checked the sealant in your tires. You didn't look into the tires that are like best for this race. Like, some of this stuff should have been done in advance of the 2 weeks, but a bunch of it happens in the 2 weeks before. So 1 week before, the week before race week, try and get stuff off your plate. This is with family. This is with the work as best you can. It's not always possible. You're going to have stuff that, like, don't stress out when you have stuff, but try and get stuff out of the way. This includes bike maintenance. Week of the race, if you can get there 1 or 2 or 3 days early, I think that's a good idea, just so you have slack. You can figure out the race venue, maybe do a quick, this course is short enough, you could probably pre-ride it. Get checked in. You're not, the person showing up on race morning trying to register at 5 a.m. if that's even an option, or like late at night the night before you're out running around in the expo. So try and set yourself up for the best, to put all that hard work to work, right? I guess.
Yeah. Not the time to add one more monster interval session or one more super technical mountain bike that you weren't supposed to do, or one more base phase somehow, or
Right. Or yeah, just
strength training. Or
so usually the week before race week, let's talk about the actual training. Usually you'd do like a midweek workout. So something like Wednesday, not the hardest one you've done, but similar to what you'd been doing midweek before. So say you were doing, I always say 5x3, but that's probably not what you were doing. Maybe you do like a 3x3 that Wednesday, something like that. Just a little bit less, but still very intense. The volume is generally coming down, but you're keeping this person actually, like, they were reducing, they were riding every other day, which is sort of an odd strategy. It probably could work fine, but usually you keep the frequency of your rides about the same. Some of that is like, you want to be familiar with the bike. You want to be fresh. You don't want to be stale. Sometimes they use these words. So riding the same number of days, if not even more, sometimes like a morning spin, if that was an option. And then the Saturday, I think this race is on Saturday, I don't remember, but about a week out, that could be a pretty specific ride. But again, you're not replicating the race. This one, you might actually be pretty close to doing it, but it doesn't have to be like hard for 2 hours or an hour and a half. Again, just whatever you've been doing to prepare is probably good, but just not the full workout. So if you had been doing, say, 4x10s threshold on the weekend, maybe you do 3x10 or 4x8 or 6 or something. And again, intense, but not depleting. And then you sort of travel to the race and away you go. Midweek, again, the week of the race, again, probably some openers. It might just be that 3x3 again, right? Like, it might just be something like that the Wednesday before the race. That might be on the course if you happen to be there very early. Some of the athletes I have going there will do a bit of a pre-ride on maybe the Thursday. I think they're doing it a few days out. Again, that depends what you can handle. Yeah, so that's peaking. I thought maybe you could speak to what you did, because you did a bit of a peak. I don't think David's big on peaking, but what did you do in the week or two before this 75K run race?
Yeah, we probably started tapering not quite 2 weeks out, but like my last really big run was not the Saturday before the race. It was the Saturday before the race. So like 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then the week after that was still like, it was kind of everything, but like at 2/3. So rather than having a 20 miler on Saturday, I had 14. And then it was, an 8 to 10 on Sunday instead of 10 to 12. During the week, it was very much like 6 miles instead of 10. Just a couple pickups on Wednesdays normally when I do workouts, but that was just a couple pickups instead of like any major intervals.
Sure.
And then actually what we did, and I really like this, is Thursday. So the race was on Saturday. So Thursday was an off day.
Okay.
And then Friday was just like a, 4 mile with a couple little speedy opener things.
Right. Pre-race day.
Yeah. And then obviously Saturday was race day. So, having all that extra time during the week, I also then cut out strength during the week. I still did my normal yoga core in the morning, but I didn't do my normal like easy strength workouts in the afternoons. I figured just give myself the full rest.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, the extra time you sort of have, you're like, oh God, what do I do? As Peter said, this is a great time to square away any of the work and the family stuff and all that before the race. I find, making out the schedule of exactly what like the day before and the day of the race are going to look like, the gear lists, checking over
To-dos,
the gear,
checklists. Yep.
all that stuff is super, super helpful. That's something Alexia has talked about on this podcast. We talk about race day checklists, gear checklists, all that stuff. We both live and die by our lists, which
Sure.
is why we get along.
Okay.
And the dachshunds, but.
And so I liked a couple things you said there. There was especially for a race like Iceman, like your race was a little different, but you still did pickups and some sprints. So a lot of times you'll see that in the peak is when you start putting those really short sprint efforts in. I think you probably put them in a lot of the time, but in those 1 or 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, that's often when you start seeing some of these like quote unquote anaerobic or sprint stuff to try and polish that off. That stuff comes quickly and leaves quickly is sort of the idea with that. So yeah, you could definitely include that, whether it's in warm-ups for your, Wednesday or midweek workout or in the day before the race. I think that's a great spot for that.
Ooh, the other thing I didn't mention was sleep. I do think like the week before the race, prioritizing a lot of sleep as much as you can the nights before, because I find like the night before a race is always hit or miss whether or not you're going to sleep well, especially, even at the race, you're in a hotel, maybe it's a little noisy.
Sure.
Maybe you're nervous, maybe you have to get up really early for the race.
Yeah.
So I find, rather than worrying about, like, I don't want to hit the night before the race stressing that I get enough sleep. I want to have gotten enough sleep before the race, or like in the days prior, that I've kind of banked those extra hours, and I feel pretty confident that even if that's a crappy night of sleep, I can still wake up and be like, okay,
sure,
that sucked, but I've had great sleep all week, so
sure,
I'm fine.
Yeah, and I think that's a good. A lot of times that's what you'll say is people will get. This is going to sports psychology we were just speaking about. And if you know that, okay, I've slept really well for the 2 and 3 weeks beforehand, then it's not as important to sleep the night before the race. It's very common that people don't sleep the night before the race. We know the performance decrement isn't that much from one night of sleep disruption. And then often you end up sleeping better.
I was going to say, funny enough, that actually makes you sleep much better.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's the idea, is just don't screw it up.
Love it.
Maybe a little bit of speed in there, but don't go wild. Ideally, that's progressing off of what you've been doing. Molly talked a bit about like decreasing the volume of the big stuff, trying to shed some of that muscular or neuromuscular fatigue, especially for the runners, right? Those impacts are important. So just being careful. The last thing you said that was really smart too was that 2 days out, that's very, very common. You see that everywhere, is taking that rest day 2 days out, and then openers, whatever that means to you, pre-race day, the day before. So often you'll see off 2 days out, openers the day before, race on the race day.
I really like that.
And that's very common. I've seen Dan John talk about that. Obviously, David's talking about that. That's in like Joe Friel books. That's pretty common. So there you go.
Yeah. And the only other caveat, and I don't know if it applies to this person or not, is if you are driving to the race or you have any way to like mitigate travel stress, like the less stress from travel, the better. So, for us, this is a lesson we keep having to learn, of like, take a little longer to get to the race. If it's a 14-hour drive, that is not a one day, especially not like the day before, 2 days before the race. Like the off day Thursday shouldn't be spent entirely in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a long drive, starting at Wednesday, dealing with
and it may apply. This person may be local. I'm not sure where exactly they are in relation to Iceman, but yeah, it's one of those ones that a lot of people are driving multiple hours to get to this race.
I was going to say Iceman in particular, because we know a lot of Ontario people go to it and they drive.
And I mean, Michigan is like Ontario, like you have to drive to get everywhere, right? So yeah, definitely trying to spread. That's why I like to get there a little earlier if you can. Again, this gets you away from work and family. Not that any of those things are bad, but just so there's less distraction. You're sitting around being bored, and that's, I think, what the problem. You said, like, you have less time. You're not running as much, and now you're like, oh, I need to suddenly go and to pick up hobbies, and it's like, no, you need to sit on the couch.
Yep.
And that's the best racers who I grew up with. I was not one of them, but the ones around me were just so good at. They would sit and watch the stupidest TV show, just like all day, just funny, lighthearted movies. And
this is why you didn't make it.
They'd nap, and I'd be like stirring around and like, oh, maybe I'll just go ride a little extra, and then I'm gonna go check out the shopping mall, and then but it's you gotta, you're laying down, and this isn't something as adults we do most of the time, But that race week, this is where you're switching to that, like, it's not as important to get your 10,000 steps. It's not as important, all this volume and endurance and all this stuff, right? That starts dropping out.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, before we get into our next question, quick word from this week's sponsor. We have AG1, formerly known as Athletic Greens. As we're heading into the holiday season, I've said it before, I'll say it again, having AG1 with you when you're going to grandma's house or the million holiday parties, or you're on vacation. It is just so helpful to have that one-stop shop for everything you need: your probiotics, prebiotics, adaptogens, vitamins, minerals, all the good stuff in one very tasty little packet. Cannot say enough.
And we love,
stuff.
A lot of this, it has all of the stuff in it. And so that way you're not going out and spending a ton of money and a ton of time trying to find all these different potions and whatever. So I do like that it's sort of like, this is the one, believe in it, and away you go.
Yeah, exactly. And it is NSF for Sport certified, which means it's been third-party tested to have what it says it has in it. Also, that it's been tested to have none of the potential contaminants that could get you banned from sport, which is a major positive.
Yeah, we want to be careful with that.
Yeah, whether or not you're getting tested, I think that's just something I look for on every label. That's just pretty key for us, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think it tastes great. I still stand by my vanilla papaya assessment. I just recently got a frother for it, and that has been a game changer for the consistency. I just make sure it's all in just like perfectly stirred up in the water, just like one of those really cheap little guys.
Mm-hmm. And I do like that there isn't sediment left in all cups around the house now. So the frother is for the win.
You could drink the sediment if you wanted.
So it's like extra good for you.
Yeah,
then it's like, yeah, okay.
And bonus, if you use the link drinkag1.com/MollyH, you also get a 1-year supply of their immune supporting vitamin D drops. So vitamin D is fat soluble, so you need to have it in oil form. The drops are actually very tasty, kind of got like a cucumber vibe.
And again, great this time of year as we get less sun for a lot of the listeners, northern climates.
Yes, boost the immunity, get the sunshine. Sunshine in a droplet, I guess.
Liquid sunshine.
Liquid sunshine. Yeah. I feel like some other brand probably has the trademark on that. I don't know. Maybe like oil for your car. I don't. Anyway.
Oil for your car.
At any rate, you also get 5 free travel packs. So if you do have a trip coming up, definitely worth the try here. So head to drinkag1.com/MollyH to take ownership over your health today. Okay. Next.
So we have a second question. Do you want to, there's the note. Molly's name. There you go. Okay. So this one, how would I do a strength block?
Yes. Also, this person said they loved our recent episode, Cross Training is Not a Crime. If you missed it, definitely go back and listen to it.
Also, Molly made up the t-shirt I was hoping that we would make. So make sure if you're looking for gifts for people who are, in the consummate athlete mindset and philosophy and lifestyle, Cross Training is Not a Crime. This is a great t-shirt.
It's true. Yeah, yours is waiting for you when we get home next week.
Oh, lovely. But maybe wear it on the next so you could see it on YouTube if you want.
Yes, and now our screen is green behind you.
Not a green screen.
It's a green screen, so you'll actually be able to see it because the t-shirt is black, obviously.
Okay. So
the question. Let's see, questioning whether it might be a good idea to do an anabolic muscle building block during the off season. This is something I've been wondering about as well. How would I know if an approach like that is right for me? So this person is asking, can I do a strength focused block as a cyclist?
Sure. So this is, I say 2 things. I say that probably a lot of us would be better to take like a month or 2 and just do strength training and walk, and like you can ride your bike occasionally, but like more like a normal person might mountain bike on the weekend and then like go to the gym during the week. I say that, and then I say that a lot of us would be suited to go and do like I would call it like a Maffetone type block, or just like a very strict base block where you mostly do endurance training. And the thing is, most of us won't do this. So this is somewhat theoretical, but I think both are good ideas.
Well, it's funny because I think 15 years ago, people would have done both of those things.
Maybe, I don't know.
But I do think with the trainer riding, I think a lot of people you don't really need to do strength because you have this trainer set up so you can just ride year round. It's very easy. It used to be like prior to trainers being so much fun and so accessible, you would do more of a strength block because the trainer you had sucked, or you didn't have a trainer and you'd be at the gym.
Yeah, and maybe you're like going to school or something, so like you just didn't have the option. That could be. And then yeah, maybe base training was like more accepted then, even though zone 2 is super trendy now. But in any case, I think the way I would sell this to you is that lots of people don't do anything for months, if not years. So it's common. I think even athletes, there's a subset of people that don't do a lot, like they take full off weeks to months. This is very like actually a lot of your friends probably do this. They just stop doing things. So is it okay to only do 3 strength workouts as your main exercise for a month? Yes, because lots of people take full months off, right? So I think the way I would think through some of these things is like there's lots of people who do this. And then even just the zone 2, like endurance stuff, like for sure, there's lots of people that only train endurance. And there's lots of people in history that have done that. That's really, if you look at a Joe Friel book, that's essentially what's going on there. So I don't think this is like revolutionary. The Maffetone book for sure is going to like convince you of this. If you want to read it, like the Big Book of Endurance by Phil Maffetone is classic.
I also think the strength thing is actually a fantastic thing this time of year for people who have a lot of other demands on their time, especially so we are heading into the holiday season. I know I keep beating that drum, but I do think it is important because I mean, how many clients do you have that
super busy,
say they want to do 20 hours a week during Christmas week and then do 5 because they forgot they have all of these other like things on their time. But also, I mean, if we're training most of the year, there's a lot of house stuff that gets, like house and like work and like life backlogs.
Yeah.
And so I really look at the strength training thing as like, oh, I'm getting 7 hours a week back. Like I'm still doing training. This is great.
Yeah.
But I'm also gaining back this time to finally, finish the basement or paint the bathroom or
sure,
spend the, put in the hours with the kids so that, you've kind of built up some points for when you do need to get back to base training and you maybe want to go somewhere warm for a week or two to train.
So we should probably talk a bit about who is this indicated for, is probably a piece. The strength training, we could call it an anabolic thing. I think the main concept, like we don't need to go too far, like anabolic, like you're going to eat a bit more, you're going to try and put on muscle. I think this is a good idea. I think this is what Stacy Sims is talking about. I think this is what a lot of things, like when we're talking about the importance of strength training, Phil Cavell was just on. His book actually is just gone wild in the US. I would say thanks possibly to our podcast. The audio book is trending #1 in the US. I think he sent us this morning. He's also sent us some great photos of his dog and him paddleboarding, and Molly and him are going back on that. In any case, check out Phil's book, The Midlife Cyclist. Again, strength training is important, but Phil, even when I'm talking to him, I said, how have you fit it in, and or did you not? And he said, I have not done as much because I ride all the time. But we know it's important. So indeed, I think it's important to put on muscle. And I think there's a subset of person that Molly said, you're busy, you don't have a ton of time. So maybe you don't actually have a ton of options. And so you're like, maybe I'll jump on the trainer once in the week or twice in the week. But then you're like, well, is there a ton of benefit to that versus strength training, where there's a ton of cardiovascular benefit that doesn't get talked about with strength training? But also we know muscle's important and just movement is important. And that's where I wanted to focus with this, is not so much the like muscle building, because some people get turned off if you start talking about gaining weight or gaining muscle, even though we know this is healthful. What I want to focus on is the subset of person who has like injuries or niggles or problems with bike fitting, or, has any issue around saddle pain, pelvic pain, back pain, any injury. I would say illness would be probably tied into this. Motivation around the bike would be tied into this. Like, should you ride the trainer in October, November, December if motivation's been an issue through the summer, or completely take a break from it and focus on going to the gym or doing it at home or wherever you're going to do strength training? I think this is that. So that subset of person that if the season has had any of those things, I think this would be a great idea to try for at least a month, where we're doing maybe 3 focused, 1-hour sessions. You could go Dan John style and do the easy strength, where it's 5 days a week and they're shorter routines, if that fits better for you. I know that's, for me, that's what I really like. And that could be a strength focused block. But I think at the end of that, let's call it a month, you're just going to feel a lot better all around. You're going to feel energy wise a lot better. You're going to sleep well, I think. But movement wise, I think a lot of these aches and pains are going to go away. If you're having saddle sores, they're definitely going to go away, right? Like, just what is the effect of not hinging over, doing that same motion on your bike with the saddle ramming into your stuff? I think
Your stuff.
it's going to be really good. So the people, hopefully, is that a good list of people?
Yeah.
Like injury, illness, like things related to riding a bike that are making your body not work great? I think as adults, I think we can take a month or two and not have that, and try and see it resolve, and then ease our way back into that, maybe with like a bike fit as part of that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Love it. Do you think that answers it? Oh, actually, I'll add the secondary question that I asked you, because we talked about this offline, obviously, as we often do, arguing over breakfast, which I think is, I was a little nervous that I'm still nervous that you're going to put a squat rack out on our very small deck. But I was questioning, could you do this without joining a gym?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, so remember, if you're new to something, it doesn't have to be like world class. So you're going to get stronger just, doing push-ups and air squats in your living room if you're not very strong. Right. And so we do some screening with people, and it's like, if you can't do one pull-up or one push-up, or, you're not very strong,
You're
then
not a bad person.
no, I mean, this is probably this is probably another indication, is like, if you're limited by strength or power, yeah. Yeah, like, I think this is the thing to try it. I think it makes a lot of sense. And yet you don't need a lot. And then if after a week or 2 weeks, you're like, okay, I could use like a dumbbell or a rock or something, then add a bit of load. But this is the beauty, is that you don't need to do a lot to start. And most of us don't. Like, you can get quite strong with just a little bit of, your kettlebells and your dumbbells and a little pull-up bar in your doorway, and away you go. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Now, if you're someone who has a gym at work or in your apartment, like, go to the gym if that's motivating. But I always say, if you're not doing the thing in a week or two, you need to do something different, and then you stay home. So that's the first order of business, is how does it get done? My experience is that most of people have to do it at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's us. Like, we've joined gyms over the years, and it's not to say we haven't gone, but I've had the best results when I just work with our couple heavyweights here in the house.
Now, say I was going to do this, I would consider joining a gym, I think, for myself, but I've strength trained a fair bit. I've been very consistent throughout the season doing strength training at home. And then if you were saying, well, now you can't ride your bike very much or at all, so now again, you have a time thing where I actually do have, like, instead of riding for 90 minutes, maybe I, drive or ride the bike over to the gym, which takes 15 minutes each way, train for an hour, come home. It's sort of the same time. So the other thing is that you do have that option to say, I'm dedicating this time. Some people might book in with like a strength class, or a personal trainer, even once a week. So it might be a bit at home and a bit with a trainer. I know a few clients do that, right? They do once with the personal trainer, and then either a routine that I do or the trainer does, or whatever they do for the other day.
Yeah. And if you didn't listen to it already, definitely go back and listen to our episode with Carolyn Burkholder a couple weeks ago, because in it, we do actually talk about strength training in the off season, and just kind of the concern that as we get older, this is kind of coming as like a bit of a thing that I knew, but it's still a shock to hear it, even at like 35. It gets harder and harder to put on muscle the older you get. So even if you were someone, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, but I bulk up so much, you probably don't anymore. So the like, oh no, I'm going to gain weight. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably past the point in your life where you can put on like pounds of muscle really, really quickly. And frankly, you should be hoping to put on pounds of muscle. Like we were talking about, when it comes to anything body composition related, really after 30 years old, you are so much better putting on a pound or two of muscle than trying to lose any weight.
Sure. And I think that's, again, beneficial from a metabolic standpoint, from a strength standpoint, activities of daily living. I think even biking, most of us would see improvements with this. Is there some people that would be, edge cases where for sure they just like are genetically, they're very good at putting on muscle, and it just like is falling off them, or falling onto them, I guess. Maybe. And then maybe those are specific cases. But again, like that, they might be people who have had a great season, didn't have any of these muscular things, have lots of muscle, are very strong, and they struggle more with endurance. And then these people might be our Maffetone folks who don't do as much, right? And
For
again,
sure.
this is where, you can't say general things for everyone.
Sure.
This is a limiter analysis, right?
I
Yeah.
do think you need to experiment with it though, because I would have 2 years ago, I would have like just argued with you right now and been like, well, I'm one of those edge cases. Like that's me. And I still strength train. Thing is, I'm not one of those edge cases, as it turns out. Like I'm getting older and it is harder. Like I used to buff up like
Mm,
a lot. If I did like any overhead press, I'd like suddenly have guns.
right.
Like I have muscle tone. I don't have guns anymore.
Yeah, and you are naturally lean and athletic. You are training a lot too. So that's the thing, is usually with the volume, there's a piece there. But
I just
yeah,
don't think I would hulk up like I would have when I was 25.
I do find that is one of those things that like we all say, oh, I don't want to gain muscle, but let's get it first. It's not hard to lose muscle. So
I was gonna say, like, I dare you.
and that's where I wanted to start with, like, the feeling. So like, do you feel really good? Are those niggles going away? Because so much of that stuff is related to the positions we end up putting ourselves in, and again, just the overuse that we're doing as cyclists or runners. So it's just a proposal, and a lot of people listening will still continue to do their strength or their cardio, and then let's hope that we add in a bit more strength. It's a bit more strength heavy. However, like, I think to your point, that if you're a little busier or you're burnt out or you don't have a bike because it got broken, maybe this is the time to try a November, strength block and just see. Just like, it's just an experiment. Like, what could, like, in 4 weeks, nothing major is going to go one way or the other, but you might be surprised, right? Like, and then you can come back and ease into it, and you still have December right through till whenever your races are.
Think about how much more you'll get done at home.
Mm-hmm. But if it's fear about, like, I mean, this is where, again, the couple episodes we've had with Carolyn and Pat recently,
Our
right?
last 2 episodes, just solid.
Around the mental strain. So this is where it's like uncomfortable to dig into, like, why could you not change this up? When it's not very convenient to do bike riding in most places. Is it a concern about, like, quote unquote, losing your fitness? And then what it would come back, right? Like, and so this is almost something that, like, the reason to do it is actually to, like, do that experiment and show yourself that, like, 4 weeks of strength training is not, the end of the world, and maybe is even better.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. Well, this has all had me, I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, so I gotta email Planet Fitness about joining the gym, and oh boy, this is a problem. All right. Well, I think we will end it there because I need to go join the Y. But if you have any other questions, especially heading into the off season, New Year's goal setting, next year's racing, all that fun stuff, hit us up over at consummateathlete.com or at consummateathlete on Instagram. And if you share this episode, rate it, review it, subscribe, whatever you do, we would be so, so appreciative. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.